No, if it was independent, they would come in every 10 minutes.
Right. It is 7 p.m., so I hereby call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
John Renson,
Here.
Brendan Murphy,
Here.
Peter Pacioretty.
Here.
Julian Phelps. Here. John Ruggles.
Here.
Brad Skepstrom.
Here.
And Lisa Wooster. Here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Good public comment.
We have one. Cynthia.
Much.
All right, for the people watching, you get 3 minutes.
I think I can do
Okay,
that. All right, it's okay to stand here.
perfect.
Good evening, Dr. Lynn, President Lorenzen, and the board members, new and old. First off, I'd like to congratulate all the new members on their election. You've likely heard that serving on the Millburn board is a fulfilling experience. Having served for 5 years, give or take, I can honestly say that that's true. So, truly congratulations. I'd also like to comment on some of the material that you'll be presented with as part of your school board training. To be blunt, some of it's going to be bolt-on. You will hear directives that may include don't engage directly with parents or the community. That again is bolt-on. You were elected by the parents and the community. We didn't want you to listen to us or be our voice. There would have been no reason to vote for you or anyone else. You may also hear the board speaks with one voice. When consensus is reached, there could be no further discussion or dissent. That was one sentence, sorry. Think about this. Does this work with any other elected person? Does this happen at the federal, state, or even the county level? Of course not. But you may want to ask the question, why would some entities be requiring you to be silent? To not voice your concerns, to not voice the concerns of your constituents, especially after a controversial vote. I can't answer these questions yet, but I do have some suspicions about that. I'd like to offer some advice should you face controversies when representing less than popular constituent opinions. In short, don't be bold. The numbers of those attacking you might seem large, but they aren't. Their voices are just loud and a mix of hypocrisy, malfeasance, and the lack of certain intellectual capacity for science and logic. That happens. Not everyone has the benefit of a quality education or uses good education without personal bias or agenda. Should you have concerns about any of this, thirdly, for any future items, please reach out to me. In closing, I'd ask that you all lead with your head and not your heart. The students deserve it, and the taxpayers expect nothing less. On the journey that you've started, I wish you all Godspeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. No other comments?
No.
Okay. Addition of information discussion items. Is there anything on the agenda that we missed or that anyone would like to add? No. Okay. And number 6, District Administrator.
Okay. So we haven't revisited the district administrator roles for a while. There's been some turnover on the board and with the administration too. So I thought it would be a good idea, good timing to review the roles. I'm going to go over it briefly. You'll have access to this in the either the board drive or I'll just send it to you. So either way, we'll get it to you. You can take your time and review it. I'm going to go through it rather quickly. If you have any questions, please interrupt. Well, I'm skipping it down to the end. Huh? No, I didn't. These aren't the leads, no. Okay. Okay. So these are the district administrator, superintendent, me is kind of to compare it to a corporate would be the CEO of the organization with the board of directors that is a governance style board. District administrators would be Carly Kraft and Adam Rollins, and I'll talk about what their roles are a little bit too, business manager, director of special services, and then at the building level, we have principals, Ben Walshire, Jake Jorgensen, and assistant principal at the middle school interning or interim, be Chris Berg, and then Carrie Gedwell here at the elementary school. I'm going to go very quickly through these roles. I'm not going to read them all. Again, carry out the executive functions of the school board. So the school board is, you know, and has been aware is always designed to direct the superintendent, direct the mission vision of the school district. And it's my responsibility to them to carry out that direction from. So I have roles in the budget, be an ambassador of the board in the school district. Make sure everything flows as necessary. Carly Kraft, their business manager, 6th year in Millburn. Previously worked at Hewitt, about 11 years, in Caremark for 5 years, served Millburn with bookkeeping, human resources, and many other business office tasks until assuming the role of chief school business official last year. Went to Northern Illinois University, did her CSBO, business management, Northern Illinois, and a 5th grader and a 6th grader. Responsibilities. Prepare district budget, monthly budget updates, prepare property tax levy, audit, financial report, purchasing, bids, regulatory finance and human resources reporting, many reports to the state. Personnel functions include all of personnel, benefits, retirements, etc. Insurance, grants, legal, and supervises directly all of business services, payroll, custodial, and maintenance, food service, and transportation. So if you think about a school district, it's not just about the educational piece. There's a business side to the school districts. We run a small transportation company with 20 vehicles, 20 vehicles right now, and about 22 drivers. 17 drivers? Oh,
We'd like to have more.
we'd like to. We have both.
Right.
Should be. So we run a small transportation firm, day-to-day basis, business services, payroll, small custodial crew. We have 11 custodians. We run food service for 1,100 people a day. 100 kids go through, and yeah, so there's a lot. And then there's just all the management involved with that. BOE officer, and other duties as assigned which change on a daily basis. Adam is Director of Special Services. That's directing special education. 22nd year in education, been at Viking, Millburn. Then in Zion as an assistant principal, then back to Millburn, and now second year as Director of Special Services. Wife Jody and father of two girls, Tegan and Emma. 15 and 13. So there's 35 certified staff that Mr. Rollins is responsible for and all the operations. 30 paraprofessionals that work with our students. Implementing the services and programs district-wide for special education students. Referring special education students, how do we qualify them, overseeing that entire process, coordinating staff development. Member of the administrative team. District 504 coordinator. Et cetera, all things special education, including the homeless liaison, complaint manager, and record facility. RTI, response to intervention, is not part of special ed, it's a regular education initiative, but Adam oversees that too. And our PBIS program, which is also district-wide, school-wide. Budgeting, expenditures, what goes along with that, state reports, lots of those, lots of those. Reports. And collaborate with transportation to get kids to and fro where they need to be. And an LEA means local education administrator, right? That's the agency. That's what it is. I know that's Mr. Walshire is at the building, so that was our district. So it's, if you look at our district staffing levels, it's at the district level, Carly, myself, and Adam are district level people. We oversee things from a different level, and then we divide into buildings. Mr. Walshire oversees the elementary building. Mr. Jorgensen at the middle school. Ben has been in Beach Park in Salem as a dean of students and principal, and then here for 9 years. 4 children, family of 6, 4 children. From 14 to 10. And Rachel, first grade teacher. And Mr. Jorgensen's at the middle school. Been here for 24 years in 2 in prior districts, 8th grade science for 6 years, and then principal, the only principal at the Millburn Middle School. That was once a K-8. Jake has 3 kids, 19, 17, 14. So, this is what the principals are responsible for at their buildings. Middle school, 450 students-ish, 34 staff members and 18 support staff, and elementary school, 760 students. That includes CEDAL, classrooms, staff members 75, and support staff 30. They provide the day-to-day educational instructional leadership, staff development, curriculum-based coaching, with standards, monthly meetings, expenditures, schedules, parent liaison, communication with parents, staff, and students, evaluations, vision, improvement plans, strategic planning. And Ms. Berg is currently serving as the Dean Assistant Principal at the middle school. She's a 504 coordinator for the school, PBIS support. Academic and behavioral teams, discipline. Miss Gedville is at the elementary, 4th year here at Millburn. 23 years of experience in elementary. She was at Lakeville and then Wakanda. She has 3 kids who have all attended Millburn schools as well. And her husband's a teacher at Lakes. She's the LEA rep for IEP meetings, which is individualized education plans. If you're not familiar with the educational lingo, that's our special education requirements. She facilitates PBIS support teams. PBIS is positive behavior interventions and supports, or positive behavior intervention systems, depends on who you talk to. That's our overall global tier 1, tier 2 system for behavioral intervention and instruction, mostly instruction. She also does evaluation of certified staff. She coordinates for the district, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, which is our state test that we took in March and April. And she assists Mr. Walshire with other duties as assigned, which is a very long list on some days. Our tech staff to support our technology needs. Tom Olandes is our network and general support. iPad deployment specialist who does all things boxes and wires. So anything that's physical, the wiring networks. Tom takes care of. Suzanne DeForcy is in the media center here and helps support technology integration with staff and children, and is the media center specialist. And Corinne Lancaster at the middle school does that as well, and has some other leadership responsibilities overall with the tech department. Joanne Briss is our student information data specialist. So she does a lot of state reporting, takes care of our student information system, which is PowerSchool. So all this information that we gather for students with attendance and demographics and their grades, all that goes into the system, has to be uploaded to the state for their requirements. He takes care of all of that, along with many other things. Rostering every app that we use requires a student roster now. So as we get more and more advanced in technology, I guess, and we have to use technology more and more to upload, we're always going with class rosters. Joanne's the one that takes care of that roster and the curriculum. Author is our general support specialist. He's hustling around the building, just making sure everything works, from printers to iPads to laptops to projectors, everything else. And that's it. These are just our bonus round assessment activities. So in the spring, we do the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. That's a state mandated test. We get the results somewhere in June if we're lucky. The public gets them in October if they get them out. The Illinois Science Assessment, 5th and 8th grade only have to take that. That's 3 tests. They take that in the spring, and then we do MAP or NWEA fall, winter, and spring. So we're coming up on our MAP testing. ERLA, we do K-5, independent reading level assessment. That's teacher administered K-5 for reading. Any questions? I burned through it real fast.
All right, everyone's ready for the quiz.
There it is. That's your administrative.
On to MBAC.
On to MBAC, fees. Fun fees. So, Carly took a peek at MBAC, and our fees are, MBAC is the Millburn Before After School Care, for those of you that don't know what MBAC means. That's our after-school care program. Just a little bit of history. Millburn took that program over from the after-school club, which went out of business at that time, or at least they pulled back from Millburn. They couldn't get their licensing from DCFS, and they let us know in the first week of August that they weren't going to be able to provide after-school care. That was my introduction to the superintendency. That was quite fun, but it worked out. So we decided to hire their employees because their employees were being let go, and we said, hey, we'll hire you. Can we do the program? Can we set it up this way? And that's when we started doing the Millburn before and after school care. We can do it actually more efficient than a third party can as far as parent fees. And then we have a little bit of control over the employee process and what that looks like as well. So it's gone well. Jermichael Slavy runs that and does a very nice job making sure that it flows. So what we want to do, the way that school districts work, we cannot make money. We're a non-for-profit organization. But we can charge fees to offset costs. So when we talk about, and we want to make sure that this particular program covers the cost. So whatever fees we're charging the parents, I wouldn't be too happy supplementing Brennan's kids staying after school. Maybe I'd be okay. We don't want that. So I might not want to do that for that particular program. That's a over and above, and it's non-school related, non-academic related purpose. So we're trying to keep that separate, and we track, do the fees that we're charging cover our costs. And so the costs are the people that are running it, the supplies, the cafeteria, what it would cost to rent that space, the lights, the heat, Carly's time, payroll, my time, all of those costs can be counted against that program. Not my full salary, because that's not legit, but portion of my salary, because a portion of my time is supervision, a portion of Carly's time is supervision, organization, payroll, and accounts payable, et cetera, et cetera. So if you take all of that, we want to make sure that it covers those costs and we're taking in and out. So we are getting close. We haven't raised our rates in a very long, well, we raised them a little bit last year. We adjusted them. Actually, some were the same and some went up of these different levels. But before that, we hadn't raised them in 10 years. And so we want to be competitive. We don't want to charge too much, but we don't want to charge too little either. And then someday have to really jump up. And as you all know, it's getting more and more difficult to hire people. And so the cost of employment is very high. So that keeps going up as well. So we're suggesting a slight increase. It was $1 increase in the morning session, and in the afternoon session was what increase?
50 cents.
50 cents per day. So pretty small increase. We just want to keep it incremental. We track what the park district does, and we stay under their rates. We're way under the private companies.
For the full day, 6 a.m., is that for like days of like spring break and stuff like that?
Yep. So what we do is, Jermichael will put out a sign-up sheet if people want to sign up for spring break to see if he gets enough, and if there's at least 10 kids or whatever their minimum is for us to sustain a program, then they'll open. If there's less than a certain number of kids, then we won't open because it doesn't pay. So those are those days. And some, like last Friday, there were kids, I think they were open last Friday. Usually on those one-off days, they stay open. What's unique about our program is that parents have the flexibility to put their kids in and out, whereas other programs, they would have to sign up for a full plan. We're flexible. We're a little bit more flexible where You can drop, it's more of a drop-in type and you only pay for that day. Which is a huge advantage. It's hard on us, I mean, that's a lot of organization, that's where the secretaries are involved, the transportation, everybody gets communicated, and we do a really good job of that. Our office staff works really hard to make sure we know where every kid goes and his, and it's a challenge sometimes, but we do. Which is really nice for parents. And it's great for parents to be able to keep them here. Wonderful, so. I think it's been a win-win situation.
Any other questions? You proud.
This will be on the agenda for approval at the next meeting, so if you're thinking of something to ask between now and then.
So in the email you sent out about childcare for parent U, is it the same staff that does MBAC?
Yeah.
Which will be doing that? Okay.
It's Michael and one more person. Yeah, we always want at least two on staff at a time. And we don't charge for that, charge parents for that.
For the parents
Like the
U.
parent you, that's, we
And
just pick up the cost.
do they have to be currently enrolled in the school, or like, let's say a parent wanted to, I don't know if we're getting ahead of the schedule here, but if a parent wanted to bring then their younger sibling so they could attend parent U.
They have to be school age.
Okay,
So in order for us to qualify for daycare, they have to be school age.
for all MBAC or just that parent U?
Well,
And it's only $1.50 increase.
dollar and more than 50 cents.
Which I think is fair with like the program. It's a great program. Organization is great. I think it allows the parents more flexibility and safety, right? Like knowing they're at school, they're not leaving the building, going to the buses. I think it's actually a fair increase. Because it keeps the peace of mind of the parent and the student. And I know the nurse is usually here also really late, so if something happens, the nurse can be there. I think Mr. Michael does run a good program, and it's the safety part for me. So I think it's a valid increase to be competitive, but also to keep under the pressure.
The assessment we did here was comparing what we knew of the salary increases for next year. And all of the anticipated increases that we'll be experiencing next year. So the dollar increase in the morning session and the 50-cent increase in the PM session will get us to the kind of debt free.
Did any of the other rates change, or is it only the
There's some.
Cottonwood Estates impact?
So this is something that we have to approve every year, and we've done this before, if you've been on the board in the past, you know, recollect. But in order for us to collect impact fees in case an area of our district is developed and somebody builds a house on it, which happens very rarely these days, used to happen a lot. We have the ability to charge an impact fee. Because when we build a house, we don't start paying taxes for the first couple of years, but your kids might start to come. So there's a formula that's used to indicate like a per bedroom formula about how to charge impact fees so that the school district can have a little bit of money up front to cover the cost of those kids. Now, it doesn't even touch the surface of what an actual tuition would be because it's a very small amount. And we can only spend that on capital improvements. So it's designed to, I suppose when we were growing really quickly, it was designed to build on a classroom, pay for something like that. Add more furniture. So it's very limited, but in order for us to do that, we want to make sure that we stay ahead of this. And if there is building that's going to happen, like what's in a subdivision, because there are subdivisions planned, they just haven't materialized yet. So we want to capture that money if we can.
So, you know, I'm the new guy here, so just, so Cottonwood Estates, that's not like a physical subdivision, that's just the name
It
of the house, okay.
So that's a good question. Cottonwood Estates is off of Miller Road. So if you're familiar with 45 and Miller Road or Beck and Miller, between Beck and Miller and 45, that to the south would be Cottonwood Estates. It's all
Okay.
subdivided out, and it could be subdivided more. So it's very.
It's all,
few.
it's just, but it's basically like farmhouses, and
Yeah.
everybody has like large
Church,
plots,
yeah.
10-acre plots.
Is the church in there?
No,
It's like, I Googled Cottonwood Estates and it pulled up something in another state, so I wasn't quite sure what it was referring to.
yeah, I'd never heard of it until I saw it. So that'll be on the next board meeting. You've got a copy of it. If you have any further questions, of course, let me know and I'm happy to answer. These are the fees. We're suggesting 5% increase that aligns with the CPI. Consumer Price Index or the capped inflation that school districts are allowed to charge. CPI is actually 7%, but we can all go high. Thank you. So, okay. Food service contract. Food service contract. No.
So, and actually, if you can go back to the agenda, and then, there we go, and scroll all the way up to the top. So we, as Jason mentioned earlier, I believe with food services, we outsource our food service management to Arbor, a management company. So they come in, they do our meal prep, they serve the students. Last year we went out to bid, they were a low cost bidder. Where we would have an agreement with them, I believe, for the next few years, but each year we sign an updated contract with them for the upcoming school district. And part of that contract is basically their rate increase for the cost of student lunches. So this year, they are asking for an 8.3, not asking for, they're stating that the lunch cost will go up 8.3%. So at the May 24th meeting, what we'll do is ask the board for permission to sign off on this contract. What is in this link is all of the background information on how Arbor got to that 8.4% increase. And you'll see that one of the very last pages in there is a list of all, right there, a list of all the foods that they're purchasing, and it explains the cost increase between January 22 and January 2023. They go on to explain and provide a lot of information about why, we're seeing the increases. Clearly, it's increase in food costs, increase of labor costs. 8.3% is where they landed. Currently, we charge $4.15 per student meal. You did not do the math. Oh, perfect. Oh, look at that. So $4.50. I'll likely charge $4.50 for student meals next year.
So I know you said, it was new that you shop for the lowest bidder, if they're the lowest bidder. Just, they're based out of Itasca, and, personally, I like to try and keep our money local. Do we have anybody nearby who's anywhere close, or?
So the one thing with Millburn is we're not a big district. So we don't have a lot of people knocking on our door that want to do business with us.
Okay.
This last time we bid, we only had 2 vendors come. I reached out to 7. All the other ones said, thank you, but no, thank you. We're not interested in doing business with a district as small as yours. The reason Arbor actually does come up this way is because they actually are the food service vendor for a number of nearby schools. So it does make a little bit of sense for them to, to have some staff that can, bounce maybe from one school to the other. Though most of the people working here are very, very consistent people that are always within the building. We'll see this with many of the vendors that we work with. One thing that did change recently after we completed our bid was with food services for public schools in Illinois, we no longer have to go with the lowest bidder. The reason for that is to give school districts more choice, with food and flavor, and just trying to find a different vendor that might be more appealing. But unfortunately, we only had 2 offer. Prior to that, I believe only Arbor came and was our only.
And then how long is the current contract?
I will have to double check on that. I think it's 3 years. But I'll send you a note.
Yeah, the number that's right on with inflation, no problems there, just, you did the shopping around, it's just unfortunate to have to go so far away.
What would be the increase then for students on free or reduced lunch?
Nothing.
So
So,
that's what I was gonna say.
right, so students on, who are receive obviously free meals, will continue to receive free meals. The increase, I feel like right now, the cost for reduced lunch is around 40 cents. So you would see like that increase of 8.5% on 40 cents. And one other thing, Fred, it's quite possible that there are not food service vendors, for, public schools or a bigger location very nearby. They're probably a little bit closer to the city, bigger companies, Aramark. I mean, it's typically who. Yeah,
And this is, just for the first year, and then we renew it, they do another price increase.
every year, yeah. But one year they didn't actually do a price increase. So between 2019 and 2020, there was no price increase. And then, as some of us may recall, in 2021, the food cost was completely free. There was federal and state subsidy during COVID to cover the cost of meals for all students, even outside of the free and reduced population.
Yeah, I asked that because I see all the food increases of 30%, 40%, 50%. Eggs were $5 a dozen. But now when eggs go back to $2 a dozen, is our price gonna go back down to where it was? I assume not.
It may stay,
Um,
but I would also just check out this list here, which will run through each thing. I mean, yes, if food prices went all the way down to nothing, we would ask,
We can just redo that every year. Okay.
every year, they're going to come back in with a different rate. Like I said.
If there's only 2 of them, we don't have one.
That's the other thing. They know that.
Yeah.
Small. Food question?
Is it good? Is the
I
food
eat it
good?
sometimes because they have tater tots. It does not have tater tots. It's cafeteria food for kids, and it's.
But not
catered
the
for-
worst, not the best, somewhere.
I think it's fine. My kids eat it, they don't complain.
Okay.
We have a fresh fruit and veggie bar, because all students are required to take fresh fruits and veggies from the salad bar every day. Now if kids are actually eating it.
Right.
I can't change that, but,
Yeah.
so there's variety there on top of the entree they're getting. So I would say it's pretty good.
Okay.
One thing too, before the next meeting, so in that food service contract link are all of the documents that, Arbor provided. So one of the documents will be signing off. We're basically asking for approval on these from the board. Just some fun reading in your spare time. But if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to shoot me an email.
Resolution to transfer budget items within fund.
Me again. Okay, so. Budget resolution, as Jason mentioned earlier, he and I basically, we oversee creating the budget each year. So each fall, and I'm gearing this more towards our newer members here. Each fall, a public school district has to present the budget for that fiscal year to the board approves it, we file it with the state. And so a budget is, as we know, it's just, you know, some of the numbers we're very certain about. Some of the numbers that we're adding to the budget, we're not very certain about. So for example, we may not know how many subs we need in a given year because we don't know if we're going to have a healthy year or a sick year. So we plug in our numbers. And as the year goes on, we may need to make updates to the budget, but you simply can't make an update to the budget without a specific course of action that requires board approval. So we have two ways that we can go about making updates to a budget. So the first one is a transfer by board resolution. So this is basically used for adjustments within various line items. And if you've seen the budget, you can basically picture it's an Excel document with many tabs and many line items. And each line item is specific to a certain function and a certain fund. Because in a school district, we do fund accounting broken out into 9 funds. I'm going into the weeds here, but it's so exciting. Education, operations and maintenance and transportation. So it's very detailed. So when we know that we are going to need to do a transfer between those line items in the budget, and it's going to exceed in the aggregate of the total fund budget. So one of those funds, like the education fund or the transportation fund. If it won't exceed it, we can do what's called a transfer by board resolution. If it's going to go over 10%, we have to do a budget amendment. If we do a budget amendment, we're basically starting from scratch. We have to go and post an article or an advertisement, a legal ad in the newspaper. We have to have a board hearing specifically for the budget amendment and then get approval from the board and submit it to the state. With the transfer of board resolution, which I think is where we're going to be landing here, because the change is that I'm going to talk about in just a moment is nowhere near 10% of the education fund. That's basically a 1-page document where we list out the transfers that are needed. The board approves it and then we sign off on it. I send it to the state and the state accepts it. So, so that's a little bit of information about school budgets and what I posted in here too. And I was super excited to see that you guys, the new members, got a book that is called The Essentials of Illinois School Finance. That's an amazing book. Another amazing book is The Mechanics of a School District Budget. Just, it's so much, it's so exciting. So you can read it at your leisure. It's very long, but it's great. Anyway, so that will give you a lot of information about like our fund accounting and the structure and the rules that the state requires of every public school district in Illinois to follow when it comes to all things financial. So it makes reporting consistent across the board. So here at Millburn, we do this hybrid method of accounting, cash accounting and accrued accounting. And so during the year, we're looking at like our cash and money coming in and out. When we do our audit, we're looking at accrued accounting. Accrued accounting is looking at how many outstanding purchase orders we have, how many outstanding revenues and expenditures we have essentially. One of the things in the school budget that we are required, or every school district is required to present to the state and include in its budget, is administrative costs. Year after year, we cannot go over 5% of admin costs. So when I'm working on the budget, I look at what our compensation and benefits for admin costs were in the previous year. I have that number. I know what it's increasing based on the, benefits and salary increases that are coming, I feel like I have a good idea. It was going to be under 5%. Auditors come in and they came in a little bit later this year. They used to do the audit in July. Now they're starting to do the audit in September, which is also the same time that the budget is due. They looked at the admin costs on their accrued basis, and there was an increase greater than 5%. So what this means is we have to do some sort of budget adjustment in order for the budget to be in compliance with state guidelines. So, that's just a really long-winded story in the next, board meeting. I will likely be asking for approval for a transfer by board resolution to make that adjustment for admin costs, and then is directed by our auditors. I've also been going through the current state of the state budget line by line to see where things are. If there's something that's really off, again, the sub example, if we, didn't need as many subs, so we have a surplus of 50,000, but we needed more paper, let's say, both under Fund 10, I would transfer that as well. So the resolution, will be ready for your review at the next board meeting, unless there's some other, and I don't anticipate, us exceeding 10% of a fund. That would be a couple million dollars, so that's that. A lot of information, sorry. Any questions?
So if we're gonna do something like we're not getting our school bus and we wanna use it on something else like Walshire Star Wars Fest at the end of the year or something,
Yes, yeah.
that's gotta come to play. That's not just fungible like that, that's gotta come through the board. Or-
Yes, well, yeah, the bus, I mean, that's not even this year's budget, but, if it's a large expense, yes. Yes, so
We have a 10% sort of leeway on moving things around.
no, this will be under 10%. So I'm looking at, this transfer is only going to be like $35,000 in I think almost like a, $17 million fund. So you would use this transfer by board resolution for, not for something very minimal, like we spent $100 on pencils, but it should have been in the market fund, whatever. Like, we would just let that go and the auditors wouldn't get it. So larger items, yes. Admin costs, because that's a separate page in the budget, yes. Things that need to be very transparent, legally or that are bigger ticket items will come through the board.
But we can't, I think what you're asking, John, is when does the board know about specific expenditures?
Yeah.
Right. So on a $20 million budget, whatever we're up to total, we're not asking to discuss, all the items.
Or would we want to?
No, right, I can't do that. So there's budget, so you approve the buckets at the beginning of the year that we put the money in. So there's so much that goes to salary, there's so much that goes to supplies, all of that's on the state budget that we approve. Then at every board meeting, you get a payables. So you see everything that we pay out to every vendor, everything from Amazon, little stuff, pennies. You can see that, and then you approve those expenditures every month. We don't discuss those ahead of time, to get approval, but you do approve down pretty granular every month. If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, and then anything over 25,000, we would have to come to the board. That's not part of the contract. We just wanted to buy some sort of Star Wars spaceship.
I will stack into all of these.
As long as it's 24,000, we can do it.
Maybe that would take the place of the wheelchair bus.
Oh, that's a good idea. Millennium Falcon.
Station, yeah. That thing never worked.
Or if it's an
Fast.
if it's an emergency, we can go ahead and make a purchase over.
Right, and then we would
$25,000
bring
with a
it-
building emergency.
And then we'd bring it to the board, and notify everybody and say, hey, you guys still have to approve it, but we had to buy a new.
The boiler.
Yeah, boiler HVAC or whatever.
And then.
That's a great. Keep asking the question.
And then if ever you wanted to see the budget or the audit or the annual financial report, you can go to the Millburn website, click on departments. And then click on business office. And we'll show you a history of the budgets and the audits and the annual financial reports. All things financial are there. And if any of the board members ever want to walk through any of those documents, I'm happy to meet with anyone. And, walk through the different tabs and explain how these documents work and what they mean.
All right. Board meeting broadcast.
Okay, so John brought up a couple months ago that this particular method of broadcasting our board meetings is not so great, and I've been hearing that from a variety of sources. So I started looking into it, and then I wanted to make sure that before I go too deep into this, that the board understands what's at stake and what options that we have, because this board may think differently than boards past, so. And we've been all over the place in years past about whether or not we should be broadcasting meetings live or recording meetings. But we do not have to, it's not part of the state law that you have to broadcast the board meeting. That's the choice of the local school board broadcast. Some districts do, some do not. And I wanted you to know that, first we should decide whether we want to or not, and then decide how much we want to put into it, because we can go crazy. In talking to one of my colleagues, they spent $30,000 upgrading their system for broadcasting with microphones and the right cameras and such. Plus I figure it'd be about $3,000 a year to have someone here to operate such system, set it up, make sure it's running, make sure it's broadcasting appropriately. This is really simple. Pretty slick. All I have to do is plug it in and it goes, but a more complicated system will take a little bit more effort as far as how to set that up. So before I go too deep into it, I want to have the board think about whether we should or not first. I did do a little survey of the county. So I can show you the results just for your information and thoughts. Don't have to decide this tonight, but just wanted to start having the discussion about pros and cons. Everybody's got a different idea of why we should do it or why we shouldn't do it. Boards in the past have had their ideas, so now it's your choice whether or not you want to continue that or shut it down. We got 34 responses. It was hard to get the questions and I got emails back, so I'll explain a little bit of the nuances of it. So there's a certain number of districts who always have broadcasts and always will. I know Grace Lake has for years, Woodland has for years. Hawthorne has for years, so there's some off the top of my head that no, they've always, not always, but in recent years been broadcasting. So they will continue. That's about 8 school districts, 34. Some started during the pandemic and will cease as soon as possible. That was about 8. Who said, yeah, we did it during the pandemic, so people had access. We're doing it, but we're not either they have not done, they've already cut it off, most of them have already stopped as soon as they could, some as early as last year, and some are about to roll that off. Then some, started during the pandemic and are just discussing now, like, where we are, whether or not they want to continue. And then some started and will continue into the foreseeable future. Now, there's all kinds of nuance into this. There's one school district that never did during the pandemic, and now they're broadcasting, which I thought was interesting. Some never broadcast during the pandemic. Or now, they just said, no, we're not gonna do it, and didn't. So people are coming from a little bit different perspective. It was interesting to hear every district has a different idea of what they need and what's going to be appropriate for them. Any thoughts?
What are your thoughts, guys?
I mean, does anyone utilize the remote? Like, do we?
Right.
I mean, I
Yes.
guess, is there a need for it?
Can you see the views? How
Sure.
many people view?
It's like under 100.
Yeah, it's about 100, or
Yeah, it depends on what meeting.
depends
A
on
lot more than a audience generally.
Yeah. If there's an interesting topic, it'll spike. If it's a general meeting,
But I feel like that's super important, like people are going to pack the media center.
Yeah.
So I mean, like if people want their voices to be heard.
Right.
They're going to come and make sure that they are heard.
And one of the things Jim touched on at previous meetings was keeping the community involved. And this is a low budget way to do that. You know, it's on YouTube, you can access it. That way we can't receive complaints that we're not broadcasting and we're trying to keep it away from people. You know, the critique I have of it is they see the big paperwork front and center, and if those documents are all available online, I don't know if I might be too vain in wanting our faces to be a larger part of the broadcast, but I like having it there, and I think that it helps hold us accountable and keeping the community involved and kind of insulates us from claims that the community thinks we're not being accessible to them.
But it wouldn't be a low budget thing if we're talking about getting a whole new system, because people can't hear us or see us, you're talking about $30,000 for
Yeah,
someone.
It might be.
It could be less, right? But I'm just saying that I feel like those funds could be used somewhere differently where the school really needs it.
definitely, I agree with that, you know, yeah, I don't, we don't need to have like a special person employed just to do
Yeah.
AV for this.
That seems a little excessive.
yeah,
I would just rather put the funds somewhere different where like the
Right.
schools feel like it can be more utilized. Like, I know the board's important, but like, we're here for the kids and the teachers and the district, so. If that fund can be used in a better way, I feel like that's where we should put our efforts.
the cheapest option is to pull the cord and say,
Come on in.
come on into the
Like-
media center.
But isn't that also a great way to connect with the community and get people
Some
back into
people
the
can't.
buildings and get them engaged and bring them here, have them meet us, have them talk to us, like, I love seeing, I'm so happy you guys are meeting. It just shows like a commitment to the community and to what we're doing, like the mission of Millburn. So in a way, it kind of gets people back into the school and the communities.
When did we start broadcasting? Was it before COVID?
Yeah, I don't wanna spend any large sums of money on new, you know, technology or anything for it. But I'm definitely wanna keep doing it.
We're not talking about stopping broadcasting, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are.
You know, it's one of those things, okay, this was a temporary fix for COVID. Do we upgrade and get something more permanent? Or do we say, you know what? Let's just go back to pre-COVID days and they can come in and hang out with us and watch the show.
I mean, they can still hear and see what's going on.
And why
with
would we
this.
get rid of this?
So, yeah,
And it's already paid for.
right, I would just continue using our droid.
If we
Hey, nice, thank you.
if we could investigate a couple of microphone options maybe, so the sound could be improved, would be kind of nice. You know, I'm not talking 30,000, I'm talking a couple of hundred at the most, maybe down, depends on, I don't know how expensive microphones are. Does it have a plug and put something in. So. If you could ask that person to maybe investigate a little bit on that. And they can make a decision based on cost, yes, under the cost. Yeah, 30,000, yeah.
No, yeah, that was one
That was
example.
just one example, I just, but even just the
I'm
have the
thinking-
person on staff, right, that would be.
Yeah, who can, just get-
Because, you know, if you're gonna broadcast if you're gonna do anything well, you're gonna have different cameras, or even if you have one camera, you have to have two people operating. Right now, I can operate so everybody sees here, the way it's set up. And online, that's why I don't show faces, is because if I don't show it up here, you can't see it. And can't follow along
That
in
makes
the
sense,
room,
yeah.
so it's a both and, so everybody in the audience, wherever the audience is, can see the same information, is why we don't show faces, but we could certainly do it.
It's something that I heard. From my wife.
Very smart to bring it up.
I'm staring at, the paperwork that we can access.
Oh, good.
So the same people.
Let's make sure you're. Just make-
Or low budget options and come back to the board. It's the,
If the community's online, can they ask us questions during like or is it just to view, like just to watch?
They would have to submit the question.
That's like,
before.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's another item, no one else, not very many other people allow that either.
Yeah,
That's
that's
unique
kind
to
of like
us.
a Pandora box, well, I don't know, I just.
So, yeah, I didn't
No,
know,
yeah, I
we're
get
we're
that.
always trying to be open and transparent, and Millburn is in general, very open and transparent. More so than most other districts, but a lot of districts don't allow anybody to email it. Or comment.
During
I've learned that. No, and never during, we don't during. Because,
Period, they don't.
period, they don't.
So only if you come in are you allowed to make a comment.
And there's others that do and don't, some that don't.
well, I'm glad
I
that
was
we do.
shocked. Okay.
Makes
Yeah,
sense
fine.
that we would, why wouldn't we?
I don't know
It's
why.
an
they
email, yeah,
Just
What if you
sharing
can't have it?
information.
yeah.
So enhance the sound.
Hence the sound, yes.
What would take to enhance the sound a little bit?
Just talk louder.
Yeah, I mean.
You can all wear the microphone.
No problem for you. Yeah.
I mean, I know when I travel and I try to call in, the last board, everyone was talking like a mouse. Like you could hardly hear anyone. So speak up, be loud, or you can get microphones or something. I think the video's fine, but the audio quality definitely is key.
What about tech people here? We're gonna have some techies here that know how to do this type of, like, this doesn't have to be that big and formal in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably there's like
Maybe
kids
some
who
of our
know how to make
students.
this stuff.
You say it could be an
Yeah.
eighth grade capstone project.
Right, like, I don't know, something to explore, not kids, obviously, but, you know, if you have like the tech person who does all the hardware and stuff, they might have some solutions.
Like a simple project.
Yes, we can come up with some solutions.
I say keep it under what? 2? 2 million?
2 grand.
Think there would be options of the 2 grand.
Oh, there's always options.
All right.
I don't know
How
if
are they
it's
good
better
or
than what
worse,
they-
right?
what we got.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the challenge is when you have a conversation like this. If you get something cheap, it's not gonna pick up multiple voices, it's gonna cut out, and it's gonna make it more frustrating. And we won't know it, the people online.
We'll give each other our
We'll
own
look-
individual microphone. That's
Right.
one.
But even if we
general.
did, right, even if you do have your own individual,
One would have to cut out.
yeah, if I'm talking, sometimes there's a
2 or 3 voices at once.
Mhm.
Shouldn't be, but you. Sometimes,
Yeah.
or just, the quick read of that. So we don't want something that, we want to enhance, it's gotta be better. Now, but I'll look at it.
Move that to future agenda.
Yeah, future. All of these are future agenda.
Any other questions? Nope, all right. Strategic planning 23-24.
Okay, I'm bringing up strategic planning right now because we have a new board and this may be an opportunity coming out of COVID to look at our strategic plan again and decide, do we want to, is this a good time to redo it or renew it? Part of it, all of it, some of it moving forward into 23-24. Strategic planning usually takes about a 6-month window to do and to do it well. So if we're thinking about maybe doing it next year and then implementing it for the following year, we should probably start thinking about not now, but just getting that thought in our head. So I kind of wanted to review the last strategic plan process, timing, timelines, show you what I did, and that might help understand, what we can do or what we should do. So I'll start with our website. If you look at our website under strategic plan on the main page, we have our 2020 to 2025. When we do strategic plans, we've always done a 5-year chunk. Also don't have to do a 5-year chunk, but by the time you get it done, by the time you advertise it, implement it, it's about a 5-year process. And then in that 5th year, you start your next strategic plan. So in 2019, we started this 2020-25 strategic plan. We completed the process and we were planning that summer. We completed started the process in about November with the public and then completed it in January. The board approved it, I believe, in February. And then March 13th, we were out of school and everybody forgot about a strategic plan. That was then. So here we are. We haven't forgotten about it. We still base our goals on the strategic plan. We use these belief statements. They are all over the place when you look at our agendas for administrative meetings, when you look at our agendas for committee meetings, they're on the committee meetings. These are what we believe. This is what the public and the board has said. This is what we believe and are sticking to it. So that's on our website. The parameters are on our website. So this is what the boundaries are. This is what we believe. This is how we're going to operate. It's on our website. And then we had, based off of that, our critical goals. At that time was transformational teaching and learning for the 21st century, attracting and retaining and developing staff. That was very important to the people in the room. Once we presented, hey, we're going to lose 20% of our staff over the next several years due to retirements, which we're in the midst of now. And so there's a lot of turnover. So how do we attract quality candidates and how do we retain the great people that we already have? So that was part of those goals, and then providing varied opportunities for students. So that's what we were focused on at that time. We got that through the thought exchange. So we did a crowdsourcing thought exchange to kind of get an idea of broad reach of the community. Tried to get broader than having 20 people in a room or 30 people in a room. So you start with the funnel big and you go, okay, we want to get a lot of ideas and then let's narrow down and get to what's the most important for our district. So these are some of the thoughts. Continue to hire passion and amazing teachers, retain teachers. Small class size always comes up, and I'd love to have a deeper conversation about class size and what that means. As we go, we'll have that around budget time and staffing time. Great teachers, social emotional aspects, education, nothing really surprising here. We want a strong, rigorous education. We want Millburn to continue to be a top quality academic school and also the caring, warm environment that we've come to know about. So that was the strategic plan in a nutshell. And that's on our website if you want to go more in detail on that. Then what I started to do is say, okay, so how are we going to monitor our progress toward meeting those needs? So there's a free service from ECRIS, the educational company that's all about data and strategic planning. You can hire them. ECRIS is the company. You can hire them to do your strategic plan for you for small fee, but they offer this monitoring tool, the dashboard, for free. So I started putting this in 2019 to the strategic plan. This is their vision, this is their values, their parameters, and our critical issues. It's all right there on the front page. And then we said, okay, what are the indicators? We want outstanding students. This is where, just to get your thoughts going, I'd appreciate any feedback that you could have, board, on any indicators that you say or that we would like to see us track for what does it mean to be an outstanding student? So what I have up here is the percent meeting or exceeding on the IAR, that's the Illinois Assessment for Readiness. So 45.5% of our students are meeting or exceeding on the IAR. Student proficiency, those students who are approaching meeting or exceeding the standards, 75%. And the reason that I add approaching here is because that includes the students who are average at grade level. This, in order to get a meets on the state test, you have to be in the 67th percentile or higher to have a 75% chance of meeting or exceeding on the state test. So we understand what statistics are. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say meets. You meet the state standards, but you have to be half of a standard deviation above the norm. That seems like it's already exceeding just the meet. So a lot of school districts include this part as well to show where that middle group is on the bell curve. Won't go into a lot of statistics on that, but this one always intrigues me. So you have that measure. Then if you click on this, if I click this, what? Kick me out, then I'll go back. Again, indicators. Okay, that'll give me a history of where we've been on that assessment. So you'll notice in 2020, we didn't take the test. That was that first COVID year. So we dropped after COVID. The orange is ELA, the blue is math. Definitely dropped down. We had been inching up before COVID, and we dropped back down. Not surprising, not a bad thing, it just is. If we did drop back down, I would be pretty worried that what we were doing before wasn't valuable, because school changed a lot right in here in not a good way. And so if we had done with the changes and the kids were still performing at the same level, I think we would need to rethink school, what we're doing. So now we're working at getting back up to these levels. So that's one indicator. Extracurricular involvement, you know, if we're wanting outstanding students, we want a broad range. That came up a lot in strategic planning. We want well-rounded students. We don't want just math and reading to focus on. We want kids who have a broad spectrum as far as their activities. There's no chart for that one that goes back. Math advanced learners, so this is measuring the number of students who are above grade level in 8th grade in math. So these are kids are taking high school. We have 58% of our kids taking high school algebra 1 in 8th grade. That was last year's. That's post-COVID. That's really good. That's really good. That's actually higher now than it was prior to COVID. Co-curricular involvement, that's the number of percentage of students participating in band, choir, and drama. So the performance arts, 46%, that's great, but my goal was around 80%. I would like to see that at some point in middle school. This is 1 year, so maybe some kids did drama 1 year and then did do it again, but I'd like every student that can to be in it, some sort of performance art, try it. Student growth, this is a conditional growth percentile, measures of academic progress, that's our end of GA or MAP test. And that's the percentage of kids that meet or exceed their goals, and we get a score on that every year. Anything above this is prior to COVID. I don't have it yet because we haven't taken the test yet. So this goes back to prior to COVID. That is very high. Anything over 50 is really, really good. Culture and climate, students as thinkers. So this comes off of the survey that we give kids and parents, the 5 essential survey, just taking the data right off that, plugging it in. Students as thinkers. Also the percentage of kids who do community service. And I think this is higher this year. Average class sizes. Parent perception of quality comes off the 5 essentials. Student safety, student attendance. And we go into quality staff, teacher attendance, teacher retention, principal retention, teachers with advanced degrees. Then we go into finance and operations, financial adequacy, and then if I click on that, it gives an explanation of what financial adequacy means according to the state. Local property tax revenue. So 63% of our budget for local property taxes. Our expenditures, long-term debt margin, etc. I haven't updated these for a while. But those are the indicators that I put in after that last strategic plan, just to say, okay, how are we doing? How are we monitoring these? Are we progressing toward what we are intended? And then in the final group, I have the strategies. So we talked about what are the strategies to get to transformational teaching? What are we doing to attract and retain staff? Different strategies. What are we doing in finances? And what are we doing for opportunities for students who start? So I just got this up and then. So I'm sharing that to say, if there's different things that you'd like to look at, start thinking about that. If we want to do a full new strategic plan, or do we want to continue this for 1 more year, do a strategic plan the following year? Just start to have that in the back of our heads so that we can start planning. But I wanted to make sure everybody saw this and and just to get an idea of what you can look at, what you can ask about as far as how we're doing. If you have a different idea of, hey, how are kids growing from 3rd grade to 8th grade, or from 6th grade to 7th grade, or from 5th to 6th, how much academic do we lose, or whatever question you have, I love researching those answers. And I know Carly loves doing that research too with the finances and going digging deep, and it's really energizing for me. So please ask the question.
Comprehensive facilities plan.
So as part of the strategic planning, we would like to look at a possible comprehensive facilities plan update. I think our last one was in the early teens, 2013, 13, 14-ish area where our last architect did a master facilities plan where they mapped out every HVAC unit in both buildings. They looked at the carpet, say, okay, this carpet has a average of a 20-year use cycle. So you're gonna have to replace the carpet in the media center in this year, which was 5 years ago at this point. But they do that for everything, painting, everything. So, it'd be nice to then plan and then we can prioritize, and that would also make sense with a strategic plan to have some idea of, okay, we know that the part of the parking lot in the back here is reaching 25 years. We just replaced the front a couple years ago, completely brought it down and regraded it and redid the base. We had to do that. In the middle of the back is looking pretty rough. We're gonna have to do that at some point so we can plan out, okay, we've got parking lot, roof, and this is $1 million a year, $1 million, 1.5. Carpet, etc. Furniture. These tables have been repaired and there's far fewer of them than there used to be because they're 25 years old and fall apart. So that, I just wanted to mention that Carly and I are gonna talk to our architects about giving us a proposal for facility, master facility. Questions about that?
Didn't we get new architects?
Yeah.
Didn't they just do that?
No, they haven't done that. They did, what you might be thinking of is the 10-year safety plan, where that's a state requirement, so every 10 years you have to do it's a different kind of audit. They don't do like your building envelope or the parking lots or anything like that. They just look at safety things that you have to do where you're not up to code, and then you have 10 years to get that done. And so we're nearing the end of that 10-year cycle as well. We're checking on that, see where we're at. Is there anything outstanding that we still need to do? Most of the critical things we did first, be on the way, anything else space. So we have that as well. So doing those two at the same time would make sense. Yeah, our architect does the same. They do this both. So. Any questions on this?
Policy committee negotiations.
Okay.
All right, same episode.
Excellent. So we have a couple of committees that the board operates. This is the committee of the whole, which covers most of our committee meetings, so we're all hearing the same thing at the same time and having open discussion. But policy committee we've done where because not everybody is interested in reading every minutia detail of policies. So we look for two people who are kind of the lead on reading through the policies, making sure to ask questions and look at that minutia in more detail. And then we can report out in general saying, yeah, we're good on these. And then the other board members can choose to read whatever you want, but have to trust that whoever's on the policy committee is doing that.
Are we looking to fill those tonight, or? I'm willing to serve on both or either.
Okay.
I don't mind doing reading. I don't mind getting yelled at in the negotiation table.
There's no yelling.
No, there's no you.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Brad?
I'm happy to do one or either one. Well,
Negotiations won't start until next late fall, winter. So we have two unions at Millburn. We have a paraprofessional and custodial union. That's called the PSRP, and then the teachers.
John and Fred?
Yeah.
We're negotiating, and anyone want to do policy?
I'll look at some policy.
He,
I'll help out.
okay. Brendan.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That was easy.
Maybe an easy button. That thing.
Sometimes it's just crickets.
I have the record for negotiations. Boom.
Yeah, you guys have big shoes to fill.
All right, FOIAs.
There they are. We just have to post them, for you at every board meeting, so they're there. I'll point out the one, from the University of Kentucky. Those are real easy. It's just an email back saying, we only go through 8th grade. Okay, fine, thanks. Those are easy. Some of them require some research by the business office, they have to run a report and send it out, et cetera. So there's a wide range of FOIAs that we get.
Do we get a lot of them?
We're getting more. Yep. Generally, no.
One or two a meeting for a while now.
Yeah, Yeah,
I don't think there were many in the first couple of years.
No.
This last year, it's almost one or two every meeting.
and some of them, so there's private companies that any of us could hire to get that information. So you might collect that information from all the school districts in Illinois. So if I'm a vendor selling my cleaning products, I might want all the contracts of all the districts in Illinois, and I would hire someone to get that, collect that for me. So it's a whole business. And there's different rules for commercial versus public entities.
If you Google some of these companies, you'll see, like, they're just a data company. They take mine and sell data.
Yeah.
Future agenda items.
Policy update.
Policy updates, budget, MPSS, that is supposed to be.
Adam is gonna do the MTSS at the next board. Are you working in that?
That one will be off the future and on to the
The
current.
next-
But like the budget, that's not till September or something, right? Or-
Well, the resolution.
The resolution, and we
But that's for
also
last fiscal, or the fiscal year.
current, yeah, and then next year we'll start looking at the 23-24 budget in the August timeframe. You know, August, September. We do budget projections a couple months, we have a company that takes our data and runs the projections. Recently, we found out that the way our account code structure is set up, they weren't able to accept our data. So I was trying to play around with ways to. At first, I was thinking, do we have to correct the way we have our account code structured? When you read these lovely books that you got, you'll see what an account code looks like. It has many fields and dimensions. I was able to work with the company late last week, and we figured out a way to manually update the data, so that was provided. So I think we will likely be able to provide budget projections. You know, I say that now, and he's working through the data right now, but provide the projections in the near future. Well, yeah, fingers crossed. And that's looking like a few years into the future then.
Proposed school board meeting dates. Everyone go over there.
Okay.
You're good for the July, so July 10th, I'll confirm, that's going to be a board training.
What's his name?
With the IA.
Party meeting?
Party meeting,
Food?
no. Yes, strategic plan.
We have food.
Yeah, training. That's July 10th, and then the 17th will be. And then, I'll flip the October, I think we said October 2nd would be better than the Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples' Day date, so. that's squared.
Superintendent report.
All right. So we have a educator of the year ceremony in Lake County. We have 6 of our staff members who have been nominated in one of the categories. Courtney Ward is our nominee for classroom diverse learning teacher. She's our ELL teacher at the elementary and middle school. She was nominated. Donnie Thomas, our 5th grade teacher, was nominated as the elementary teacher. Sandy Jacobs for middle school teacher. Susanna Boyle as a paraprofessional. She's a middle school working with 8th grade mostly. Carrie Gedville was nominated as our assistant principal here for the administrative category. And Lynn Schaefer, one of our nurses, was nominated for school support personnel nurse. So there were 6 nominees, so we're very excited about that. They'll be honored on Wednesday at the Lake County Fairgrounds.
This Wednesday?
Thousands of people, yes.
What time?
Wednesday?
5:30? 5:30. Tickets? Tickets are what?
Yeah, purchase tickets and event.
Purchase tickets. May have an extra ticket, something, so we'll find out tomorrow. I can email the board. We have an extra ticket.
For things like that, you know, small nominal part, are we able to expense things like that? If we're
Yeah.
going as official, okay.
Or, yep, anything board, anything as part of your board related activities. That's that.
Business officer.
Oh, I was.
That was it. That's an easy report.
I was doing so good.
Yay, us.
I was doing so good.
It's all right. It'll be quick. 3rd grade mini musical, 6:30 on Thursday here. Drama class performance on Friday at the middle school, 7 o'clock. That's the 8th grade drama class performing Thursday and Friday at 7 o'clock. The Navy band performs next Wednesday. Middle school? Yeah, one of the schools. The Navy band performs with our band at the elementary school there. And then, the band concert last week was wonderful. They had 4th through 8th grade bands at the middle school. They did an amazing, awesome job. So it was really fun to hear. They were good. And excited. That's. So,
All right, Carly.
Alrighty. We got through most of this. If you can just scroll down to open enrollment, human resources right there. So open enrollment. Every year, as most of you know, we have open enrollment for our benefits, health, dental, vision insurance, as well as our flexible spending accounts. So that starts this month, on May 22nd and runs through June 2nd. All the changes are effective September 1st. So this is the time for staff to make their benefits changes. And this year we're doing something slightly different, a little bit more robust of a communication strategy to get people, you know, everyone enrolled on time, kind of create a little bit of an efficiency there. And then transportation, talk about taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. The wheelchair bus that Midwest leased us is actually not leasable. I found out from Midwest last week, so back to the drawing board, keep looking for a wheelchair bus.
What happened?
Thought it was leasable and then simply called and said it is not leasable because it's a demo bus. He should not have offered it. Yeah.
Is it donatable?
There you go.
That's a good question.
I'm thinking maybe they, who knows, they leased someone else. So maybe we do need that Star Wars ship or whatever.
We have the Millennium Falcon. It runs one.
So far, this new board is president.
And then I'm just, that's just a list of meetings I go to just for your information. I'll never thought it, but I'll just include it.
But we want to know all about it.
Give me a call anytime. We can talk about it. Not about that.
Are we good?
I'm done.
All right.
Board report.
Board report. You want to have a board report? Mr. Murphy?
Speaking of bands, the Lakes High School has a festival of bands every year, and for the first year in my memory, Millburn came. And Mr. Anderson conducted the joint band of Millburn students and high school students, and a couple other middle school students. So it was very good. So, lots and lots.
And art and choir. So that-
I was there for the art choir. I missed the band. My little kindergartner was done for the night. But my sixth grader was in the choir, and then saw your daughter in the art, and the art was really impressive. So was the choir. It was a nice, good night.
So last Thursday, I attended the staff appreciation.
Right.
It was, good to see a lot of faces that I haven't seen before. I got to meet a couple, the sports staff that my son had talked about, but had never, I got to meet Sue, union rep, who looks like we'll be working with on negotiations. Had some teachers come up to me and thank me for attending as a board member, so it's good to get my face out there. And John fortunately put me to work, so I didn't feel quite so awkward, handing out raffle tickets and stuff like that. So that was awesome. Good to see teachers be people too, and not just, a face in front of a classroom. I went to the CEDAW budget meeting this morning. It was just basically them reading over it. I didn't really have any questions to ask because the CEDAW was brand new. And then before this meeting, I did my CEDAW governing board orientation. Getting pretty quick, not much. We have our quarterly meeting next month. I attended talk from the Sierra Club on the airport in Waukegan. Might not necessarily be too related to the school, but one possible consideration is water management from that construction project could lead to decreased property values in Wadsworth. We get our money from some people in Wadsworth. The people of Wadsworth voted against it, but are they really gonna be able to affect it? So I don't know, it's something to keep in mind. It probably won't be that much. Attended a webinar on Illinois' voucher program, and the panelists included a mother of four who received vouchers out of Indiana, a lawyer for a group against vouchers, and a University of Michigan professor who researches and publishes on it. The state of Illinois does have a voucher program, but they do it as I don't know if anybody knows this, but they do it as like a tax. You can use it to offset your taxes to the state. And then the state, you donate money to a scholarship granting organization. It's called the Investing in Kids Act. So it's, not coming directly from a property tax budget. There's a lot of information there. And, so that was state level. And then when I was a member-elect, I got in some FaceTime with our US Congressman Brad Schneider at a Moms Demand Action meeting, talk about some of the stuff they're working on with school safety. They got, several million approved for schools to put mental health counselors in, but it's only one for every 100 public schools, and it's primarily going to low income areas. But if anybody's interested in trying to get FaceTime with him, talk about issues, addressing it, gun safety, was the key, not gun regulation, gun safety and affordable health care. He'll be in Wheeling on this Saturday. Everybody wants to try and get time with him.
One thing before we go, I sent each of you separately a text message this weekend to review your agendas. Just to kind of get in the process of reading over the agenda over the weekend, so everyone's prepared and knows what's going on Monday. And if you have questions about the agenda, you can ask them over the weekend. Would you guys like me to continue that, or do you feel, hey, he's just being nuts, or what are your thoughts on that? And just, text you the Friday before, That way you can review it before it goes public and ask your questions over the weekend and Jason and Carly can answer it. Is that something you guys would like me to continue to do or?
I would.
It
Sure,
would just
John, I
be
think it's a nice
individual.
reminder, yeah. Doesn't hurt.
Okay, then with that, anyone else? No, all right, going once, going twice, sold. All right, then I need a motion to adjourn to closed session. Four. Number two. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
So move.
Second. All right. Roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
John Lorenzen,
Yes.
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Cushing,
Yes.
Jillian Phelps.
Yes.
Don Ruggles,
Yes.
Fred Ekstrom,
Yes.
Lisa Rooster.
Okay, we're gonna go into closed session. We will not have any board action after this, so I'm cutting off the broadcast.